Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of TurboShed, where today we are going to be fixing our very leaky differential and putting all new seals in it. Our differential has taken up the attitude of a sieve. It has been in this car probably since new, and it probably hadn't had any seals in it at all over 30 years, and the only time it's probably been out is when we took it out 3 years ago, and we haven't even changed the oil since then. It's just been put there. So we're probably going to find some pretty bad horrors in it.
It's seen a lot of abuse in 3.5 years of hard drift, drag, racetrack, street. It's probably full of weld debris and all sorts of things. Well, it's been 3 years since it's out. I think the fasteners will be okay because we copper slipped it when we put it in. So let's take it out and see what horrors are hiding underneath.
I'm scared.
That was tight. Yep.
We've got the drain bung out of the diff, and there seems to be more diff on the actual magnetic drain bung than there is in the actual diff, so who knows what horrors we're going to find inside.
So first job's just to undo the V-clamps on the exhaust and the mounts. We can get that pulled off and out the way. Next job is the drive shafts. 6 bolts on each side, and these are pretty rusty and they've been in for a while. So it's the breaker bar time. Next job's to separate the drive shafts from the flanges, and usually you can give them a sharp tap with a hammer and they'll split off. But not these, they're solid.
We've got to start the car up and use the V8 breaker bar, because the hammer, well, 2 hammers, the crowbar, ratchets, breaker bars, hammers, more hammers, and they didn't work. After 3 years, they're solid. So, fire up.
So the easiest way around this is start it up, stick your foot on the brake and let the clutch up. There we go, that's the left hand one broken off. The right hand one's having none of it though. So, plan B there. More revs, off. Sorted.
Second gear and rev. Second gear and give it B?
Just let the clutch up.
Oh, so what, you just dropped the
Yeah,
clutch?
just drop the clutch.
Okay. There's a blue one.
There seems to be slime pouring out of this, yes. So with that sorted, we can take out the 2 rear mounting bolts that go into the rear cover, and these are well rusted in, and we had to make a special tool with the hex to do it because we didn't have an Allen key that size. And they're tight. So with the jack underneath, we take off the 4 Propshaft bolts that hold the prop shaft onto our adapter that I think we machined about 3 years ago now. With the bolts out, we can push the Nissan carbon prop shaft forward into the gearbox just enough to get clearance to get the diff out. So the last bolt to come out is the front mounting here. Use the air tool for that, makes it nice and easy. And there we are. Get Leon on the outside, he can lower the jack while I steady the diff. And hooray! We've liberated the differential from the back of the Lexus. So you can see here it's a pretty oily mess. We thought it would be. So before that goes on the bench, the first job's to clean it. So Leon can clean it while I go and make a cup of tea. Onto the bench and we'll get the prop adapter off first. So there's the 3 bolts that hold this onto the Lexus drive flange on the diff there. So they come out okay because we copper slipped them when we put it together. But it was a rather better fit than I remembered. So it took a little bit of wiggling to get it off the end of the stub. This was where the fun started though. How to get the half shafts out. 2 pry bars, usually they just pop straight out. What's going on?
No.
Let's use a bigger pry bar, that'll fix it. No, even the 5-foot scaff bar and the crowbar. No, that didn't do the trick. Oh dear.
I thought you broke it.
So usually they've just popped out by now, but they're having none of it. So we resorted to putting some holes in some 20mm steel plate, and then we can put bolts through and draw them out using the threaded holes in the half shafts themselves.
Oh, there you go. That's lifted.
Keep going. That's it, this one's lifting out now. So it'll go, ping, there we are. That's come free. Leon can pull that side out. We can move the jig round to the other side and do exactly the same again.
Oh, that'll go.
Felt like it.
That'll be it.
And this is just before we discovered we'd probably done a really bad thing.
Do you think there's a snap ring floating around in the bottom of there?
Yep.
Oh. What? Oh, there's the other one.
You know what?
What?
These look like circlips.
Circlips?
That went on after this was put together. Oh, pants.
What do you mean?
So at this point we figured we may as well take the back off the diff anyway, because it had to come off to be able to sort this out. So we'll buzz that off with the air tool and then do some more thinking and some more tea drinking.
That was easy.
And you can see here with the back off the diff, the crown wheel and pinion don't look too bad. And there's those 1/4-inch plates we welded over when we locked this diff up right at the beginning of this project. We have the diff apart, we've got the half shafts out, but we've got 2 problems. The first one is that I thought this diff, based on the manual that I've got for it, used snap rings in the end of the half shafts, like 99.9% of all the differentials mankind has ever made. It turns out it doesn't. It uses these E-clip type snap rings, which you're supposed to pull off to get the half shafts out. Well, we got the half shafts out,
but
we just didn't take the clips off first. So these clips are a funny shape now, and they've got a nice spline indent in them. So they're dead. So that leaves us with two problems. The first thing is that the seals I'd ordered are clearly for a later differential, so they don't fit this, so I've had to order some more seals for this type, and we'll put the part numbers here. The nose seals I've got are correct, they're the same as Supras and everything else, but the side seals are unique to the UCF 10 and 11s, it appears, because this differential doesn't have the bolted on seal housings. That's the first thing. The second thing is I've ordered some new clips.
Yay.
That's great. Can you
No.
see the problem?
Yes.
The problem is that these clips are inserted through the differential housing after you put the half shafts in. It's just somebody's welded 1/4 inch steel plates over the top of there, and now we have no access for this. So what we're going to do is clean the inside of all the oil and everything else out so it's nice and dry inside, and we're going to have to get this area here that we plated over and cut a slot big enough to be able to get that E-clip in on each side of it, so we can assemble this back up again, because otherwise we can't put it back together.
Yay.
So we've just got to do it, and that's the way it is. So let's get this cleaned up. I've got new clips and new seals on order from Japan because I can't get them in the UK because all the Lexus dealers are closed. And even if they were open, I'm not sure we can get them. And that will allow us to put this back together with the seals, and then we can start talking about mountings, which are all knackered.
All knackered.
Turns out they won't take 1100 Newton meters of torque. So we get the air drill out first. We can put some pilot holes through the plate. That's going to make it easier later on. So we just drill a few holes down through the gap that we're going to make in this plate, and then we can get the carbide burr in the rotary tool and we can cut that slot out. So you can see here the slot we've cut in, that should be fine for getting circlips in and out. So next job, onto new differential mountings that aren't made of rubber. There's no point trying to press these out because they're a metal can with a rubber inside, it just presses the rubber out. So what you need to do is get under the edge of it, and you can see it peeling up there, and then fold it in on itself, and when you do that they loosen off and you can get them out. Bearing in mind this has been in for 30 years no doubt, they tend to be a bit stuck. After several cups of tea and lots of hammering, there we are. Squirting WD-40 down the sides of it whilst you're knocking it helps as well because it loosens the joint. Job done. The next job's to measure up the hole that we've now got where the mount was. We've had a dig through the metal scrap bin and found some bar ends that we're going to use to make these bushes out of, because we always do this on no budget. So Leon gets to draw the pictures and I'm doing the measurements there, and once that's sorted, there's our drawings. Computer aided design once more. Well, Sharpie aided design. So it's onto the CNC. We'll get this programmed up. It's a pretty simple program because they're only in effect top hat bushes. So Leon gets the job of doing the programming here. We'll stick one of the billets in and we'll get it machined.
We've machined up the two new solid bushes for the front of the diff, and they've come out very, very nicely. We did them in two halves because that's what we had. We didn't have a piece of metal big enough for doing it in one big bit, but machined up beautifully. So now we're just going to put them in the diff, make sure they all fit nicely, and then it's time to knock the rear rubbers out. Slide up the bottom there, that one in the top, and bolt goes through the middle. And they'll sit very nicely, nice and snug. That's it sorted.
So it's back under the car to get the rear mounts out. We don't want to hammer these out because the subframe is a little bit thin as far as the material goes here, so the best thing to do is use some bits of bar and tube and our famous 20mm universal pulling plate. I think that's got a special service tool number, and we use that to draw them out, and then just for the last couple of mil we can tap them out. There we go, That's one out. Same process on the other. And we've done no damage. We can now measure it up to check the distances between the rear and front mounts, so we can get those correct. Bearing in mind we're not using rubber, because it's solid mounted, those distances have to be right. So under there with the measuring sticks, get the measurements, check them off the diff there, so we get the right front to rear. And then once more, we can draw up what we're going to do. Again, we're using bits of billet bar ends that we found in the scrap bin. There's our measurements there, that's all sorted. Back to the CNC and let's cut some metal. Yes, it's time for the special service tool once more. We're going to draw the bushes in using a bolt because we don't want to hammer them in and damage anything. So it's much better to pull them in. We cleaned up the surfaces on the subframe with the pad on the grinder. You'll have noticed that before we installed these, and there's a very good reason for that. Yep, we're going to weld them in solid, and those little fellas are going nowhere. So with that done, we can get back onto the seals. The first job, we've got to get the nut undone on the nose of the diff, and they are tight. So we machined up this 20mm steel plate so we can bolt it to the milling machine, and that allows us to get the nut off. With that off, we can see how manky the original seal was, and it's always a good idea to check your new seal before you hoik the old one out with a screwdriver and make it a one-way trip. The side seals were a bit more tricky. This used the big long pry bar and 1 Richard power. Job done. So after cleaning out the seal grooves, we can put the new ones in. A little bit of oil always helps, and you should really never hammer seals in. I've seen this too many times. People hammer them in and it bounces the spring off the inside of them and you can't see it to know you've done that. So it's always best, use some tooling and use the press. And here you can see we actually cut the lip off the old seal and use that to press the new ones in because it's the right diameter. Why wouldn't you? Job done. So the 2 side diff seals go in, we get those pressed in nice and square, and then we can turn the diff over and we can do the nose seal, not forgetting to put that shim in first, because you're in a world of pain if you forget that, because you've got to pull your brand new seal out again. We must say thanks to the Flemings in Brisbane for sorting out those side seals for us. We couldn't source them anywhere, and they managed to get them 20 kilometres from their house, picked them up and posted them straight over to us, so thank you very much for that. with the seals in, it's back onto our jig plate. This three-handed job, we can hold the diff up in place, get the nut on and tighten it up.
Do you have to set that preload on that nut or not?
Yeah, I'm going to.
By just tightening it?
F-tight. So with that done, we can put the half shafts in, and you can see here we're using circlips because we sort of kind of broke the E-clips taking it apart and we can't get them anymore. So you just hold the circlip open with the circlip pliers whilst a helpful assistant knocks in the half shaft and it'll just pop over the circlip. That's the plan. With that done, we can seal up the back and we can get that put on. You can see here also we've changed the breather to a barb fitting because that means we can put a pipe on it later and stop it leaking. So Leon gets the job of running those up. And yes, we do actually own a torque wrench and we're going to torque these up to tight. There we are. And then it's time to put on our Propshaft adapter that we made many episodes ago. The torque setting for these is 1 grunt. Final job, in goes the drain bung, and then we can fill it full of oil on the bench because it's a lot easier to do it than it is trying to fill it in the car. So we can go the 3 diff mounting bolts with our solid mountings that we made, and then we can tighten those up, then it's back in the car. Hooray! So Leon gets the job of connecting the Nissan Propshaft up to our Lexus diff, get that sorted out, our 4 bolt to 3 bolt adapter there, and then we can get the drive shafts done. And we can get the funk out. It's not only Binky that can do that, you know. When doing this, it always helps to have somebody in the car so you can shout to them to press and release the brake pedal as you work your way around the driveshaft bolts. Makes it much quicker. So last couple of finishing off jobs now. And we're really glad that we split the exhaust into a few sections and we used V-bands when we did it. It's so much easier to get it apart than using flange joints and gaskets and bolts. A quick check of the drain and the fill bungs, and then remember that barb we put on? We can run a bit of turbo silicone hose from that, and we put a small hole in the boot floor. We can thread the pipe up through there, and then we can thread it into a breather bottle that we carefully cable tied to the surge tank, and that's our catch bottle. That's it. We've done the differential, put new seals in, made hard mounts for it, got it all back in again. So hopefully that's the end of our differential leaks. And we've also replumbed that breather across into the breather bottle. So if it does get hot and such like and churn about, then it shouldn't drip oil, which would be nice. So that's it. Nice job done. And I think we're all sorted for that.
Also, thank you very much for the response to the last summary video. It's got some really good views and comments, so thank you very much to that. And well, we will see you next time, where we will be doing a Q&A session, and then hopefully back out on track finally.
That'd be nice. That's it. Thank you everybody. Please subscribe, please share, and we'll see you next time.